of Wyndham. Welcome, everybody, to RVing in New England.
Bob, I did some investigative reporting. Now, Ben, you've been a reporter.
Yep.
You ever do investigative stuff?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Because you had to, because you are Captain whoever it is, Captain America with the headset on and everything like that.
He must have thought he was coming on Jim Cramer's show or something tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
I wear the headset to keep the background noise down.
I did the investigative reporting on the fact that since Lee's Family Camping Center started advertising with us, their business tripled, and it caught the attention of Camping World, and they made Dan an offer he couldn't refuse. So we take full credit for the fact that Dan is now a multimillionaire, and we're still sitting here on Wednesday nights doing this show. Some things just ain't fair.
So maybe we can use that on our next pitch for the sponsor for the next 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? We should introduce ourselves, and look at this. We got red, white, and blue, or red, light blue, which we're going to call white and dark blue.
Yep. Yeah.
So as the announcer said, my name is John DePietro, and I'm here along with Bob Zagami, and our special guest tonight is, actually we say tonight, but we don't know whether you're listening to it during the daytime, nighttime, morning, afternoon. We hear that this show is big with insomniacs that can't sleep, so they turn it on.
Our guest for this episode of
that's the way to do it. Now, we live? Yeah, we are live. Okay.
We are live.
Okay. So
I hit the right button this week. Are you going to tell him who he is, or should I tell him?
Well, I've done everything except mention his name, but I did sneak his name in earlier and say Ben.
Right. Our guest tonight is Ben Quiggle, the infamous editor of Woodall's Campground magazine, and I just gave him a new name, the Campground Answer Man. Did you like your headline? Did you like your headline today, Ben?
Yeah, it was interesting. So I don't know if I have all the answers. I like to think I do.
Our fans will have the answers.
Well, Ben.
Speaking about fans, we got Jerry Plant from Majors RV. He's coming into us from Cape Cod tonight. Dante Vespignani up in Wyndham, Maine, just down the street from Camping World of Wyndham. Evening, gentlemen. Maria's here tonight. Good evening. Jim Roy from Silver Moose Restorations. Good evening, gentlemen. Did you see the Argosy that he put back on the market?
Oh, he did that. I would have, you know what?
A 1978
a before picture of that. I would have loved to see a before.
I'm sure he's got it, but Jim is Ben, you got to do a story on him. I don't know how you fit it into a campground magazine though, but he's just restored a 78 Argosy 20-foot that is absolutely gorgeous. And,
well, no, here's how you do it. Because Ben, you could do a story on vintage campers and all these rallies that they have all around the country. Bob, remember a couple of years ago when we were in Elkhart and there was a GMC rally at the Elkhart Campground?
Yep. And guess what? When we do the fundraiser for the lobster bake for the Northeast Camping Charities this year at Normandy Farms, the GMC Northeasters chapter is down there the same weekend.
Oh, there you go. Oh, that's right.
They're going to invite them over to enjoy the spread. Sandy Ellington. Hey, Sandy's on time.
We don't know where she is. She could be on the West Coast. Sandy, tell us where you are.
Tell us. You're traveling all around. But does that mean we have to be on our good behavior tonight?
Why? She's one of the guys.
Ben, have you ever interviewed Sandy for the magazine?
You know, I've recognized her name. I don't know if I've actually interviewed her though. So
well, you'd know it. You'd know if you did it once. You'd know it.
Well, she's a campground consultant. She does some amazing things in this industry. I'll send you her contact information. She'll be a great.
Let me interrupt. The best line of the night so far, and I didn't make it up, but I'm reporting it. When we were at that GMC rally there, we went in, and of course, Bob and I always happen to visit rallies during mealtime, Ben. That's
a good time to go.
That's a media thing, right? During mealtime. And they had a sign up, our menu today, 2 items, take it or leave it. 2 items on the menu, take it.
All right. Dante says
Frank Cates remembers the Woodall's catalog. You know, you wouldn't believe how many.
I remember the whole Woodall's magazine. And when they used to do a competitive product guide similar to what Trailer Life does. And I go back that I remember the day that they sold it to them.
And they used to do.
How old I am.
They used to have a contest, I think, to vote which was the best campground or whatever. They used to rate stuff. So it's interesting. Everybody always comes up to me and remembers the Woodall's catalog, and I always have to tell them that it's not in existence anymore. So.
No, it's not. So
catalogs have kind of gone away because when you figure the time that it took in advance to produce those catalogs, if you want to do a Christmas catalog, can we still say Christmas?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Here we
okay.
go. Here we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you wanted to produce a Christmas catalog, you had to do it like in January or the prior Christmas, and who knows what would be in style.
So Dante says he didn't share the money with you guys. You'll never know. You'll never know, Dante. Bernie says, "Oops, 2 minutes late. So sorry, gents." Well, that's probably because you're in New Hampshire time, Bernie, and they're probably a little bit behind Maine time. So we'll forgive you. Jim Conboy, it's all from
State Line Campground.
And here's another guy that practices what he preaches. Boy, he works really hard. It's tough putting those roofs on, flex armor roof, and but he's out in that campground every weekend, and so is Chris Andro from Hemlock Hill. Jerry says no issues making reservations on my 4-week trip, mid-July to mid-August. Couldn't get into Anchored Down, but no problem anywhere else. All right, for those of us who haven't been to Anchored Down, Jerry, give us a hint. Gail Hogan says, good evening, gentlemen. Sandy says, I have terrible internet, but Ben and I have chatted via email. Well, you got to step up your game, Sandy. We got to get you in the magazine. Nice interview with what you're doing in the campground. And she's got some great ideas on campgrounds. I love working with Sandy.
Ben, here's
John had her on our Camper Report Show interview.
Right. Because I always get the leading names first. And I had Ben on Camper Report Show too. So keep in mind one thing, Ben. If you notice, we have a very loyal group of every week fans. Yep. And when they're late, they even apologize. Okay? So who was it that apologized today? Jim Roy?
No, Bernie.
2 minutes late.
Actually, he sets the record for the apologize. Usually it's like Kessler coming in at 30 minutes late saying, and then he doesn't apologize. But
Kessler jumps in about
the others
7
come in and apologize. I have to remind Kessler if he gets off the grill and would tune in the show earlier, it would be
or out of the hot tub.
Right. So. Oh, the hot tub. Oh,
yeah, he has a hot tub now.
Oh, no secrets. All right, Ben, no secrets.
He's probably
all right, all you guys and all our fans out. Jim says, Bob, I just emailed you the before pics of the 76 Argosy. Your post said it was a 78. I'll check them out. I'll get a couple up during the show. Ben, what would you like to? I've got some topics, but let me pick out a topic and get it going. Then I'm going to sneak out and.
And while you're thinking of that, let me tell you the best.
You want to do your trip first?
Well, I'll sneak it in sideways like I'm trying to do right now. Okay, Ben, you notice I have to fight for a word edgewise. That's why I like doing Camper Report Show. I have 10 minutes to myself. If there were ever 2 words for owning an RV, I will tell you those 2 words. Some might argue, say it's 3 words, but public restrooms.
Yeah.
So are you leading into a topic of conversation as to why people would own an RV but still insist on using a public restroom?
Well, because I was helping out an esteemed member of the New England RV Dealers Association, Sherry and Bob Fuller, and here's the thing.
You can say what you're doing.
Camping is going crazy, and these people rent RVs, and they've been in business for like 37 or 38 years. But here's what happened. Here's what's happened, Ben. People are renting the RV, bringing it back, and buying it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they are frantically looking at the for sale ads, the for sale by owner ads, and Bobby Fuller going around New England with a checkbook and his Ford Explorer with the thing that you can tow. You can tow it.
That's called a hitch, John.
A hitch. Okay, a thing you could. Okay,
The
so
thing
you'll go buy somebody's trailer.
thing you can tow. Yeah.
You'll go buy somebody's motorhome, write them a check, and tow. Drive the motorhome back with the car in tow.
Yep.
So what?
Oh, okay. No, you're correct. Okay, you got the car in tow. I thought you were going to say he was towing the motorhome with his Ford Explorer. Sorry, jumped the gun. Just thought you were a little off your game tonight. Sorry.
Hey, because I didn't sleep last night. So what I did was, in order to get it, because I couldn't drive out and then drive the motorhome back, because I don't trust myself to tow, because I wouldn't do that, for a 1,000-mile ride on I-90. I took Amtrak out, and it's economical, but boy, 20 hours on a train.
Yeah, that sucks.
Is a long time. And I will say this. A lot of the delays on Amtrak are not Amtrak related, because Amtrak doesn't own the tracks. The freight companies own the tracks, Norfolk Southern and CSX. But the bathrooms on those trains, 100 miles into the trip, are unusable. And that train goes from Boston to Chicago nonstop. So they don't stop and say, okay, we're going to clean it up.
Yep.
They allegedly clean as you go, but I think they just keep going and don't clean. So the whole time I'm thinking, oh, folks, you need to buy yourself an RV so you don't have to go through this. But anyway, that was that for public restrooms. So, Bob, what were you going to do? You're going to...
Well, I'm sneaking off screen there a little bit to grab some of Jim's pictures. But this one, I know Ben writes about it a lot. The magazine covers it a lot. Chuck Woodbury covers it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
From your editorial position, Ben, is there really an issue with crowded campgrounds? You just saw Jerry post and say, hey, for a whole month, I got the campgrounds that I want. And, my argument is that sometimes these people will say that they can't get the campgrounds, but they're trying to get them at Pigeon Forge or Disney World or Yellowstone Park, and there's a million. What's the real scoop from the campground answer, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think there's plenty of availability if you're flexible. I think some of the complaints come from people who, obviously, maybe you're going to take a family to Yellowstone. Well, there's you sit down to plan your trip, and you look at campgrounds in Yellowstone, and if you didn't look at it in January and February of this year when they first opened reservations for the year, then you're probably going to be pretty shocked and find that it's filled for June, July, August, maybe even May. Those campgrounds fill pretty fast. It's not a surprise. If you're looking to camp July 4th weekend, I think you're going to be in for a surprise if you go in and try to reserve a site now. Not saying that there isn't any availability. It's just that the popular campgrounds tend to fill up the quickest, and it takes a little bit more pre-planning.
But Ben, Bob, who's the guy? Mark Campground Fusion.
Yep.
Him?
Yeah,
he knows him well. Yeah.
We had Mark on last June,
mm-hmm.
and he said, 4th of July is coming up. Everybody thinks that, things are, they on paper they've been sold out for months. Okay. Yeah. But if it's 100 space campground, chances are there's going to get, a cancellation.
Yep.
So last 4th of July, we were up in northern Vermont, which, is a desirable area, and didn't have a place. And at 2:00 in the afternoon, I called the campground and I said, I know you're going to laugh at me, but by any chance, have you had any cancellation? She said, have you been tapping our wires? I said, what do you mean? She said, I just hung up the phone for somebody who canceled with 2 spots.
Yep.
And what do we need? 2 spots. And, 4th of July is kind of a special night at campgrounds because there's fireworks, there's people dress crazy. And,
some people don't wear any clothing at all.
I haven't seen
once it gets late at night.
Have you done you've done clothing optional campground stories, haven't you, Ben?
Yeah, we've done a few. They're part of the industry. We don't highlight them, extreme amounts, but they're a part of the industry. And
You say you don't highlight it. You mean you don't make a graphical presentation of the campground?
graphical, yeah. I mean, they're great. I met some great owners of some of those parks, and one of the parks we featured was actually family owned, and the woman who runs it now actually grew up at that campground. So I mean, it's I don't think I'm going to be heading out to a clothing optional park anytime soon, but there's definitely a crowd for it. So
yeah, most people wait till they're about 70. And then gravity sets in.
I've heard of campgrounds that will take in cancellations. Obviously, you can always get lucky. I see that Bernie mentioned, or not Bernie, Jerry, and I can't say last names very well, so we're just going to keep it with Jerry. Got into Plante, yeah. Got into Pigeon Forge. So, I mean, it's not like you couldn't find a site at a Pigeon Forge campground. I would imagine that's a pretty good job there getting a site now. I would imagine they're pretty filled down there. But, cancellations, that's a really good point. You could always get a cancellation. I know some park owners, I believe, that keep waiting lists. So if you were to call, they'll actually keep a list with your information if you want them to. I think that's kind of going by the wayside, though, especially since a lot of campground owners are having employee issues and they just don't have the time to make return calls. So
what are you hearing about that, Ben, about how bad is the employee issue with the people you've talked to?
I think it's, it depends on the park. So, I think the larger Jellystone type parks are really, having a hard time. I know we talked with one in Wisconsin Dells earlier in the spring that relied a lot on foreign. Some of them bring in like foreign students to help out, and obviously that's been kind of rough right now. And the amusement parks, are struggling with that too. So, I've talked with park owners who are used to having a few employees and they're just having to do it all themselves. I know in Northern Indiana, John, where you just came from, the factories are paying $25, $30 an hour with, I think one factory was offering like a $10,000 sign-on bonus. So when you're a campground and you're trying to compete against stuff like that, it's, obviously a campground's not going to be given a $10,000 sign-on bonus. So
we're seeing that here in Old Orchard Beach, which had for years a tremendous influx of Canadian, Irish, and Romanian students, and there's nothing. In fact, I tried to get a reservation in Portland last night for some of our friends next door, and we were going out to dinner. We could not get a reservation anywhere in downtown Portland, Maine, on the harbor, on the waterfront. And a lot of the restaurants now are starting to close, and campgrounds don't have this luxury, but a lot of the restaurants up here are closing at least Monday and Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. You just cannot get a restaurant that's going to be open. But the campgrounds up here are really suffering, with this lack of foreign students that used to come in here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem. Some parks are finding creative ways to deal with it. I think the parks who are having the majority of good luck are ones who have really built good community relationships. So they're going to the high schools, they're going into the communities that they serve, and are finding workers that way. I know I've spoken with a lot of new owners who are looking for workers, and they haven't really built those connections. And I just feel really bad for the park owners. It's a wife and husband team, and they're having to do it all this year. And they get burnt out. Anybody would get burnt out in that situation, I think. So,
yeah. Ben, you mentioned something. You mentioned new owners. So, are you seeing a lot of new owners contacting you as one of the experts, at least on the campground side, in terms of what's actually going on? That's why we wanted you to talk to our fans tonight. But when they contact you, are they regretting that they made the decision to buy a campground, or do they fully understand that they just got hit with a tsunami that everybody else got hit with, and we're going to have to bear with it for a couple of years.
I haven't talked with anyone that regretted making the decision. I think, there's a huge learning curve. I know on Mark Kep's page, the RV owners page that he has.
Great page, yeah, great page.
There's quite a few new owners that pop on there and ask great questions, and it's a long process. I think there was a post on there the other day from this woman who was saying that it took them 6 years and they're just finally opening. So it depends. They develop their resort, so it can be a long process. It's very tiring. I think, if they ask a lot of questions, it's really great. I hear from some of them and I point them in the right direction as to who can help them the best. I think we're seeing a lot of new subscribers come on from new owners at Woodall's.
Now, Ben, this is a very interesting conversation that we're leading here, and as well as I know, we don't script anything. We let the audience kind of tell us what the topic is. But the mom and pop campground, or as you said before, the wife and husband campground versus the new campground profile. There's a company that I got to talk to them next week, and I don't have my notes because I'm not in my office.
Great Escapes?
No, it's down in. They're building 4 mega parks, luxury parks in Florida. I may have seen him on your thing, but I did an interview with a guy from Big Rig Media, and
yeah, I know which park you're talking about, but I can't think of the name.
Yeah, so. But it's one developer. Now, these people were condo and shopping center developers, just like our friends at Blue Water.
Yep.
So those people are coming in. They're high. Like Blue Water has even developed a management arm of their business to provide help. It's just like this Marriott hotel that I'm in right now. It's not owned by Marriott. It's got Marriott's name on it because they market well. Yep. And others come in and and people run it for them. What I'm saying is we've got corporate activity in the campground industry right now. Flash in the pan, or do you think that's the wave of the future?
I don't, these investors are coming in really heavy. It's amazing how much investment money is going in to these projects, and how big the resorts are, and how a lot of them are resorts. It's just amazing the amenities they're offering, and I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. These people seem really invested in the idea of investing in the outdoors. So it's incredible. I hear stories every week. I'm seeing stories every week of adding new resorts, starting the process of developing different resorts. You have Great Escapes. Northgate Resorts is coming out with their own brand. The one you mentioned there in Florida, you have Blue Water, which is really expanding their operations. Even like KOA, I believe they have between 15 to 20 new builds that they're working on. So
new builds, which is amazing because
it's just amazing.
Their business model in the past was to take your old campground and convert it to a KOA, right?
Well, Ben, we get a lot of conversations about this from our fans, but also with respect to dealers. I see the same thing happening in the campground industry that we're seeing with dealers. We have these mega dealers now. We've got these 5 mega dealers: Campers Inn, Camping World, Lazy Days, RV Retailer, General RV. They're buying up a lot of dealers. Well, in many cases, that's good for the small to medium mom and pop that stays in business. They give more personal service. They know the customers better. They've had longevity with the customers. They don't push them out of business. Amazon didn't push everybody out of business. Lowe's and Home Depot didn't push everybody out of business. Do you see the same thing happening in campgrounds? Because a lot of us have camped through the years at nice campgrounds that we go back to every year because there may be 10 million RVs on the road, and certainly we have a new demographic of people buying RVs, but there are a lot of people that don't want a resort. that don't they do truly want to disconnect. They just want to lay on the beach or take the kids out canoeing. So I say there's always going to be a place for the small to be in. They just have to be better at marketing themselves against the mega campgrounds. Same thing with the smaller dealers.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be pushed out of business. A lot of these larger resorts, they charge a little bit more. They're more expensive. They have really nice features, but you're not necessarily going to go to one every weekend. Maybe it just depends on where you're located, I guess, or what you're into. I think there's a lot to be said for the smaller parks that offer like a more of a homey feel. Everybody, and there's maybe they don't have like a huge water park attached to it, but they got a nice little pond, and people can just park there and have a great weekend, and it doesn't cost a tremendous amount. I think I saw a glamping site last week that was charging, I think it was an under canvas site that was charging over $1,000 a night.
Oh my God.
Which is just incredible.
Let me not forget, we got a good fan base here. Jesse Brissett's on. Good job.
Yeah, and Tony's on too.
Wait a minute. He says, give John some credit. Now, Jesse, I'm not here to give John credit. Nor is John here to give me credit. So forget that. Are all your Camping World signs up there? Jesse's with what was Gander RV in West Hatfield, which was
Diamond RV.
Diamond RV, right. And so now they've changed it back, or changed it to, they come out the gate with Gander RV. They came back with Camping World. Jerry says,
huh? Go ahead. I was going to read it.
He just into Pigeon Forge just this afternoon. Jerry, are you a parrot head? Because do you realize that next year you'll be able to go to Margaritaville? They're building a Margaritaville campground at Pigeon Forge. You may be able to go by and give them a few pointers while you're down there. But this is the second Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville campground out on the marketplace.
And we also saw this week, it was announced that Blue Water is developing a 200-site property at Foxwoods for RVs. I sent that to you. Now, Sandy brings up, did we talk about that already? I mean, the biggest problem that we have is that these great mom and pops can't be found on the internet and don't allow booking online. Now,
well, that's why you're a consultant in the campground business, Sandy. We depend on you to get these people up to the 21st century and get them out there.
Okay. But you've got two different demographics here where the couple, when I started in the RVing lifestyle, if you will, in 2003, and I was 53 years old, we were the youngest people in the campground. Okay. And the only activity that most of the campers had that we noticed was taking their recliner from the belly of their big Class A and moving it around the campfire and staying there all weekend. And maybe they would rock every once in a while, or maybe they would get up to get another beer. But that was what they did. Now, today, with Class Bs and the four-wheel drive Class Bs, that like the Winnebago Revel, and that audience doesn't want the shuffleboard. They don't want,
and they would not be targets, right? And they wouldn't be targets for the small mom and pop campground. You're right. They're more boondocking. They're more likely to be a non-campground camper because they'll be boondocking somewhere. I've got to take a quick commercial break here, guys. Hang on one second. We want to thank Dan Craffey and the team at Lee's Family Trailer Sales for being our sponsor since January 1, and they are ending tonight as their last night in their 6-month engagement. Company has been sold, and Lee's Family Trailer Sales is now Camping World of Windham, Maine. Thank you, everybody. All right, so let me just get caught up here. Jerry says Anchor Downs has a wait list, and they're in Tennessee. Bernie says planning is the way to go to where you want, when you want. Good point, Ben. Jim Roy says smaller parks here in Maine are hurting for help while being booked solid. That's true. Not just Maine. I sent somebody to Peter Daly at Circle G today, John, He's a kind of a work camper type guy that was going to be here building a microbrewery for the next 6 months, and Pete did not have a slot from now until October. And that's a small to medium family sized campground. Been there for years, open year round. He could not fit the guy in.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So Bernie says, sounds like a good. All right, Bernie, I caught up with your question too late. It says, sounds like a good business plan, Ben. So I'm not sure. Remind me what you were talking about.
I don't.
Frank Tate says, started early, Salisbury Beach, May, no problem. Winter's Land, June, no problem. July, Cape Cod, easy site reservation. August, Winterland, again, no problem. So I think, that goes to what you said, Ben. I think people, maybe they got to work a little bit harder. They got to start a little bit sooner, but you can't tell me that you can't find a campground.
No, I don't, I mean, there's sites available. It's just, sometimes people want a certain site and they can't find it. I like what Jesse said, you don't have to be better, just have to be aggressive. And then Sandy mentioned the biggest problem we have is that these great mom and pops can't be found on the internet, which is very true. I mean, it's amazing how many parks have a website that looks like it was designed in the mid 90s and, or you can't find them.
The 50s.
There was one lady, and I can't remember the park name. It was near where I used to live, in Elkhart, Indiana. It was near Elkhart, Indiana. It was a great park, and I didn't even know it was there. And you literally had to stumble on it. And when I talked with the owner of that park, they liked being off the internet. They filled the park every summer, and they didn't want to be on the internet. So, I mean, I guess that's fine. If that's your business plan, I think, if you're more aggressive, then, you got to keep up with some of these larger park owners are obviously super aggressive online. So, if you need to generate business, you got to be more aggressive on the internet. That's just the way it's going to be.
You got big bills to pay, and you got, significant capital improvements, right? Somebody's got to pay the bills to build these multi-million-dollar luxury resorts, and they'll find their customers also, because they're not making these investments because they think it's a good idea. They're making them because they know it's a good idea, and they know there's a waiting audience, and they know there's a pent-up demand. That's, a lot of people in our industry think that we're going to have a 5 or 10 year run like this. That there's just going to be, we now have so many people talking and learning about the industry and investigating it. Go ahead, John.
You bring up an excellent point, because as we talked about in Camper Report Show, you've got Forbes coming out now at least twice a month with an RV themed story, Forbes magazine. And, Wall Street Journal's doing stories. Remember last year, Wall Street Journal did a giant full color cover of a section about the year of the RV.
Yep.
And, so it's not like we're taking away the opportunity for the old campers. We're really, Ben, wouldn't you agree, bringing new people into the fold without pushing the old timers out?
Yeah, and I don't think the new campers aren't necessarily all going to these fancy resorts either. If you drive around here, like the picture behind me is from Gateway Park, which is a great park that's located here in Hillsdale, Michigan, where I live. It's a small park. It doesn't have the amenities that these larger resorts have, but it's filled with families every weekend, and the families love coming there. And I think, you go around the country and you have all these small parks, and families love going to those parks. Millennials love going to those parks too. So it's not like you have to have a huge park to attract these millennials. Obviously, I think the industry's attracted a lot more people that are used to going to fancier resorts and hotels and stuff like that in the last year or so. And they may be looking more for those types of experiences. But, there's lots of room for everyone, I think.
I think largely due to the efforts of Mr. Zagami, he brought a world-recognized marketing figure, David Meerman Scott, into the camping fold, who bought himself a Winnebago Revel, and then on top of that was putting, what was it, another 35 or 40,000?
He put an initial 45,000 in enhanced improvements to a brand new RV, and he just put another 25,000 into it.
Yeah, but what he does is to he doesn't look for campgrounds. He goes to Hip Camp, and David wants, the reason he got the 4-wheel drive and the big solar and the big batteries is he wants to get away from the pool.
Yeah.
And, whether it's inspiration to write his next book or whatever, but
that's an interesting point. I think a lot of campgrounds could do themselves a service by highlighting some of the off the, I don't know if it would be off the grid, but kind of the natural stuff and the stuff that they have to offer. There's a big chunk of millennials that just want to get away from everything and be in a quiet place and kind of be off the grid. And if you can provide a place for them to do that, then you need to highlight that and, attract those people to your park. So,
yeah.
Let me throw something else out that I've just started to have this conversation this week with our dealers, because we're making plans for our January Boston RV and Camping Expo. And, dealers are a lot of our dealers are on the fence. They don't have inventory. They're not sure they want to do a show. But we're going to have a show, and we're going to have a sold out show. And my argument is that after 2 years, there's a lot of people who are going to want to come back to an RV show and talk to the campgrounds and talk to the dealers. And my argument is we pat ourselves on the back that we sold over 500,000 RVs last year. Well, any marketing person will tell you, if you sold 500,000 of anything, then there was probably 5 million people looking for the same thing. We focus on the 500,000 buy the RVs and say they'll do this and do that. Well, how many people are in the marketplace right now who have not been to a campground, who have not purchased an RV? And I would argue that it's at least 10 times the number of people who are buying the product.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you guys think?
Yeah, that would kind of make sense. I mean, there's a lot of RVs that haven't been delivered. So,
that was another thing. Bob, I drove by Gulfstream. Well, I drove into Gulfstream, and they, as far as the eye can see, units that are either ready to go, but they can't get transport drivers, or up the road in I think it's Middlebury or whatever it is, where Grand Design is.
Just before the show, John sent us some pictures. So I'll run through the 4 pictures, John. Tell us what they were. This was on your trip.
Let me talk about the Grand Design thing. Thousands of units that are
Grand Design
that are almost done, but they're missing a part. They're either missing, right? They're either missing a refrigerator or a controller because the parts aren't there.
Yeah.
All right. So let me go through these. Give us
okay. Here's an example. Bob had a slide up before about alternative camping. This was taken this afternoon at 5:00 on the Ohio Turnpike, where 4 of their 8 rest areas have RV parks. Now, I shouldn't say RV parks. They have parking for RVs. For $20, you get a full electrical hookup, and you get a dump station and water. So for those people that are traveling and need power, if you've got a big Class A, like you can see there's a Class A. Well, you can't see it in that picture, but it's down behind that orange car. There it is. They need power. They've got so much stuff on it, and $20. So again, some people might say, "Oh, that takes a night away from the campground." It really doesn't, because they weren't going to stop in a campground anyway. They're going to a campground somewhere down the road. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've seen that, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, with Hip Boondockers, Welcome. Well, they've been rolled into Harvest Host now.
Yep.
So, which
and then Mooch Docker is the other one. I think we discussed it last week.
There's a couple others. Do you cover? I read your magazine. At least I thumb through it every week. But are you covering the alternative camp, or is that kind of off limits because you are a campground magazine?
We do a little bit to some degree. Obviously, I've spoken with Harvest Host and Boondockers Welcome, and we've highlighted some of the stuff that they do. I've talked with Hip Camp and highlighted some of the stuff they do. I mean, it's not something that I think regular park owners are huge fans of. I think when you talk with Harvest Host, he argues that, they help campgrounds because they're attracting these people to the area. And I guess he has statistics that show that, if they stay at a Harvest Host site, they usually turn around and stay at a local campground too. So we cover them a little bit, not a tremendous amount. So,
yep.
And same with state.
Yeah, go ahead. Same with state.
Yeah, same with state national parks. I know for a lot of campground owners, they get, kind of upset when they see all of this public money being invested into national and state park campgrounds. Obviously, it's not available. They can't get grant funding for their parks. So sometimes that can cause a little bit of issues. But I think, everybody kind of helps each other out. Having great state and national parks nearby attracts people to the area, and it helps fill private parks too. So
right, it's that's why they build shopping malls, right, Ben? I mean, you want to go to one store, or you want to go to 20 stores in one place? Do you want to go to one area with just one campground, or do you want to go with a selection of campgrounds and maybe do a national park, maybe do a Yellowstone, do something like that? Before we get too far in, we talked early in the program with Jim Roy. He put this 78 Argus on the market. This is totally restored from the ground up. Check Silver Moose Decorations. If you're on Facebook, check Silver Moose. And somebody asked if they could see before. That was probably Jerry Plant. So this is what he inherited when he stripped it all the way down the whole floor, and the outside was a mess. And it was delivered to him in the middle of the winter in Maine, and that was what he started with. This is what he finished with. And it was already sold once, but the person had health reasons, so they kind of backed out of the deal. But this guy just does amazing work, and he's in the middle of the woods in Maine, Ben.
How heavy is that thing? Like, what do you think the weight on that thing is?
Towing weight?
I hope you're not asking. I hope you're not asking John Nye that question. Jim,
do you think I could tow that with my Mazda CX-7?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But Jim, if you're still online, you can answer that question. Tony Barthel joined us. Hello from Nebraska as we wind our way back to California. Tony, you are late. Now I have to give you the rules of the road here because perhaps you may not know it, but when you are late to RVing in New England, you are supposed to apologize to the fans who were kind enough to join us promptly at 7 p.m. So
he did earlier, Bob. I think he did earlier.
He did apologize. Okay, Sandy's back. Sure. Jesse says, what does Jesse say? Have to pay a living wage. These states look at campgrounds like they fund public works. It's a business, have to run it like a business. Campground owners also have to come up with the time and invest in a scheduling software. National parks are great, but we're not going to get customer service. Basically are dealing with the DMV. Well, I don't agree with you 100% there, but Jesse brings up an interesting point. And this is getting a lot of information lately. What about the dynamic pricing? And I'll start off. I do not have a problem at all with dynamic pricing. None. It's fair game. It's the marketplace. It's out there for hotels and rent. If you've ever rented a hotel, a rental car, or taken an airplane, you have paid more money because of dynamic pricing. Now, it can go the other way, as Mike Gast pointed out on his articles this week in RV Travel. It could go down if it's really trying to get people. My campground answer man, what do you say to this one?
I don't know. I think I don't know what's going on with the dynamic pricing in the campground industry. They've been doing this for a long time in other industries. obviously they haven't been doing it for as long as the campground industry. I think people, camp at the national or state parks. The state park next to me charges like $12 to $18 a night for a tent site. So, I mean, it's really cheap. For RV site, it's like $30 a night. So, I think people maybe have gotten used to the lower campsite fees at like state national parks maybe, or even at private parks. And it's just kind of sticker shock seeing them fluctuate now. I think, people are doing some of these premium sites for over, $100, $120 now. So, I mean, maybe that's part of it. I did read, I don't know if this was on RV Travel, but I did read a web story about discrimination where they were afraid of campgrounds discriminating against them because they could see through the reservation software how much money people make and other things, and maybe they just deny them a site because they didn't want them to come. It was some really weird stuff going on.
They get carried away. It's strictly based. The algorithms are based on how many sites you have open, how many seats are open in an airplane.
And Jim Roy writes, "Thanks, Bob. Ben, we never weighed it, but best guess from others, it was built at around 7,000 pounds. They towed it in with a half-ton pickup, not a Mazda. Ha ha." Jim Roy. This dynamic pricing thing is interesting. Even restaurants have it sort of kind of where they change their menu on Mother's Day and Christmas Day.
Here's what Sandy says. And I agree with her 100%. Get used to it. It's here to stay, and it's going to be more common. Mom and pops need it to upgrade their parks. It's the same software. The mom and pop can use the same software that these other people are using. And you're going to see there's a lot of software management, software reservation, software systems out there. You're going to see every one of them going to it. The couple that are out there right now leading the pack, they're going to follow suit really quick because, number one, the campgrounds are going to demand it. They see what it's done. The campgrounds that have installed it have realized extra profit every season, and they can document it. How much they made reservations last year, how much this year. So a campground owner who hasn't done it is going to do their homework. And when they get to negotiating with these various software vendors, I'll bet there's a ton of them that are going to rule out any vendor that does not offer dynamic pricing.
Yeah, I mean, all the reservation softwares now pretty much offer some form of dynamic pricing. I see Jerry Plante noted campgrounds have always done in-season and off-season pricing. Yeah, I mean, dynamic pricing takes that a step further. I think it's just common knowledge that if you stay at anywhere, if you were to stay at a hotel this coming weekend, it's probably going to be more expensive than if you stayed, in March. So I think it's just common. People just kind of have to get used to that. Another thing people are going to have to get used to is site, electric metering. And more campground owners are getting into taking a look at their shower bathhouses. They're just not going to let you run the showers anymore. They're going to start either it's going to be a push button or a token based, where you only get 6 to 7 minutes to shower and then it shuts off and you have to press the button or put another token.
Many campgrounds that you had to take a roll of quarters with you when you took showers. Now that can be automated now, I'm sure.
Bob, that's a car wash.
Oh no, John! This was a campground shower. You're not as old as I am, John. Out there.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
I think what the consumers need to realize a little bit is that with a lot more campgrounds are using the reservation software, and it's not just reservation, it's park management software. And for the first time, these campground owners are able to hook up and see how much all this stuff is costing them individually. So, before when, they had unmetered electric sites and people could use the bathhouses, they weren't really aware of how much it was costing them. And now, Sandy Ellison pointed out again, I did a forensic audit for a campground, and a rig they had there was costing them $36 per day in electric, and their rate was $48 a night. So now parks are also starting to charge by the foot rather than by the site. Lots happening. So, I mean, when you're talking about that, they're only making $12 there on the site minus whatever the cost was for the sewer and the bathhouse that they used it.
Jesse's at the top of his game, John.
Jesse is with it. I mean, he's all over the place tonight, but he said something up there before. Bob, you're 100% right. What were you referring to, Jesse? It was way up, probably about 10 minutes ago. Ben, 100% correct. That's why dealers are freshly purchased Camping World immediately got a nice boost. What? Dealers around? I don't know. Whatever.
I don't know what Jesse was talking about, but I'll take the 100% credit.
Yeah. Regardless, take the compliment.
Right.
Take the compliment. So
Jerry, all right. So Tony has apologized. So we'll let you back. We'll let you back into the audience next week, Tony.
But we've also talked about electric vehicles, and that's another reason campground owners are starting to meter electricity. They're afraid about how much that's going to cost them.
Yep.
So,
that is amazing, because you come in with an electric car, and if they ever got to the point where they got the electric pickup truck, it looks like that's going to be put off a little bit. At least the Camping World.
Only the Lordstown one. The Ford F-50 is rolling along. It'll be out here next spring.
All of a sudden, everybody brings their electric vehicle up and is charging it overnight.
Yep.
And they're not paying extra for it. It's going to just cut down on the profits of the camp.
So Ben, we only have about 8 minutes left. These hours pass quickly. We may have to go to a 2-hour show, John. But if looking out the next 8 minutes, what are you forecasting? What are you looking to report on for the balance of the year? You see, now we're into the year. We got past Memorial Day coming up on July 4th. What's the rest of the camping season look like for you?
Well, I mean, we're actually getting ready to mail out our August issue next week. So, I mean, it's in the magazine world. It's already almost fall for me. So, we're going to be taking a good look at the industry, how well everybody's been doing. I know my job for the next couple of weeks is just talking to dozens of park owners and trying to put together an article on how the industry's doing so far this summer and what the outlook looks like for the fall. The snowbird parks are, getting ready for another. They had a really great season last year. Most of them, I think the 50 plus and over parks kind of struggled a little bit for obvious reasons due to the COVID crisis, but they're looking to bounce back. And it's just going crazy. I think we're going to see a really strong fall. People are reporting that their midweek reservations are up, which is really good, and I think it's going to keep going into the fall. Even when school starts, I think people are still going to find reasons to go out, and Halloween's just been a really big holiday for the campground industry the last 5 to 10 years. It's just been growing tremendously. People want to get out and do Halloween activities at campgrounds. I think there is a campground in Indiana. I can't remember it. Rudolph. It's a Sun Community Zone park. They do 7 weeks of Halloween stuff now. I know there's other parks that do.
I think Normandy Farms does 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Bailey's up here in Maine does an incredible 2 or 3 weekends around Halloween. And, the idea behind that isn't just it's fun for camping, but it's society. We don't want kids running up and down the street, knocking on doors of people that they don't know. And with the crime in the streets these days, why not go to a campground? That sounds like something that every campground should really invest some time and money in, because when I walk through Bailey's on around their Halloween park, and they've got 700 something sites, every site is it is just like the streets that I used to grow up on in a city outside of Boston, but you don't see that anymore. They don't want you to trick or treat. If you do trick or treat, they want you to do it at 4 p.m. in bright daylight, so cops can walk. But that's a phenomenal opportunity for campgrounds to build up end of season revenue, and people. There are people that get into it. There's a couple of people over at Bailey's. I'm telling you, they must have spent $5,000 or $10,000 for their displays in the campground.
Yeah, I mean, I know at the park in Indiana, the minute they put the reservation out, they're sold out. So I mean, it's incredible, and they charge premium prices for that. So for the campground owners, it's, for that park, it really works out for them. And then I think some of the challenges we're going to be covering, well, we already covered some, is the ADA stuff that the campground industry has to deal with. Some owners are being a little resistant to it. Obviously, it's a pretty big investment for park owners, but I think they've got to start tackling it a little bit at a time. We're also seeing the Wi-Fi. I think somebody commented about the Wi-Fi, about how they couldn't find good Wi-Fi when they were traveling. I forget who commented. I think it was Tony, but somebody commented about the Wi-Fi. I mean, the industry's trying to play catch up. I think people had been talking about Wi-Fi for years, but COVID really brought it to the forefront, and now campground owners are kind of rushing to get the solid Wi-Fi.
Right, with the homeschooling and the remote work, absolutely. Yep. Have you interviewed Mark Douglas for the ADA?
Yep. Yeah.
Bonus? Yeah. Yep. Mark's did a great job on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Mark does do a great job, and he said that it kind of slowed down during the COVID. He does assessments. He said those really slowed down, but now he's hearing from some developers, and he does really good work. It's just something that the industry just really hasn't focused on a lot, unfortunately, and it's something that we need to get better at. So,
again, as we broaden the base of people looking for an outdoor experience in campgrounds, then we have to come along and get up to code and get to standard to make sure that they can enjoy the campgrounds as much as everybody else. Our guest tonight has been Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Campground magazine, and
editor-in-chief.
Editor-in-chief?
No, it's just editor. Sherman won't pay for the chief. So
we're giving you a title.
We'll talk to him and Rick and Greg and see if we can get them to. Well, I told you the other day when I talked to you, we got to get you to renegotiate your contract. You do such a great job for the campgrounds and for the consumers when you come on the show. You always have some great information. So thank you again for joining us tonight. And John, thank you for stopping off on your trip from Elkhart back to Massachusetts.
I just missed Ben by a day. We could have had coffee yesterday.
Yeah. Have a great night in Toledo, John, and thanks for letting me come on. And Sandy, I noticed you said let's grab coffee. I'll have to keep that in mind when you're in Elkhart. So, and obviously, John, it would have been great to grab coffee with you, but just didn't work out. And I talked to Rick about renegotiating my contract, and he said that sometimes that means that the numbers get lowered. So I don't know. Rick was playing a little bit of hardball.
That sounds like Rick and Sherm. Yeah.
We got to get Rick back. And we got to get with because of their affiliation with us, with partners.
We do all of our news sections on the Camp Report show from.
We got to get Sherm, Greg, and Rick together.
Yeah, good luck getting Sherman on a show, on a video show. So
we're gonna get him. How can anybody say no to John and Bob, Ben? All right, thank you everybody for joining in. We'll go back, and Ben, I always ask our guests to kind of go back to the comments tonight or tomorrow and comment or respond to some that we didn't get a chance to look at. So we had a great audience tonight. We had a lot of comments there, and thank you, everyone. We will see you next week. Have a wonderful July 4th weekend. I hope you're going to do it in a campground.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.